Welcome back, I'm Captain Xavier, and this is an addendum to my medium DMR evolution video because a number of people pointed out that I had missed a very vital link in that evolution in the form of the Cedas. And they were absolutely correct, and luckily I happened to have one of each, as it turned out. I had completely forgotten that they existed. These are ones that were tucked away in storage. They're not ones that I ever use or ever really think about. And so I had completely missed that link. And they're right, it is a vital link because in many ways, this is where the modern era of DMRs really started. It was in the Jet Blaster's Ceda, which was not, by most accounts, a particularly good blaster. There were better options at the time for performance, but for features and for future development, this was a huge step. It had a number of excellent features. It does have a standard buffer tube, which has now become much more common in our hobby, so you could use various aftermarket grips. It was obviously pump action. It was tear down. Pull 2 pins, and you could take it apart and swap out the internals. And you really needed to, because the internals that came with it were pretty garbage. And there were replacement kits for them, but they were expensive and kind of hard to get a hold of, if I recall. There were some attempts at making homemade kits that you could 3D print and then do some brass work. That was back when we still did a lot of stuff with brass. I attempted it. I had no idea what I was doing. I failed. This blaster no longer functions. But it was the first injection molded Pro Series blaster. The performance was not great. But again, it was the first step. But the thing that it introduced that really changed kind of the whole field was the Katana magazine, which was the first truly dedicated, fully properly manufactured half-dart magazine. Now, we had made our own by cutting magazines in half or doing all kinds of weird things to make our own half-dart magazines, and I don't know if these had actually hit the market yet, but Worker had a half-dart magazine, but it was the size of a full-size magazine. It just had a half-dart follower, so you could put half darts in it and then put it in anything that would take full-length darts. You could put it in here, but it also meant you could put it in a caliburn and now be able to fire half darts without needing an adapter. But it still took up the same amount of space. When the Katana mags came along, you could either carry twice as many Katana mags in the same space or the same amount of Katana mags in half the space. And that was a big deal. Now, they weren't great. They had some issues. The plastic was a little flimsy. They did tend to get gummed up, but they were the beginning. Now, I don't know why, nor do I particularly care, and I definitely don't want you to get into a fight about it in the comments. Jet kind of fell apart. And I don't know what happened after that. The next time I found out about the Ceda, somebody sent me this for review, but the next time I found out about the Ceda, it was on eVike. And for a while there, eVike was sending me stuff, and they sent me the Ceda S. It's a Ceda, but it had a number of improvements. The stock internals were considerably better. The plastic quality was a little bit better. The original Cedas were very glossy and kind of too smooth. The Ceda S was a matte finish, much better texture. There were a number of other improvements, but it still had the same basics, buffer tube, pump action. There were now a lot more 3D printed parts. I don't remember who sent me this, but somebody sent me this pump grip with Picatinny rail. Very nice, because there isn't Picatinny rail inherent on the Prime. But it was an improvement. Still took Katana mags, still came with an adapter, could still use full-length darts, all of that. And of course then the detriment of being able to do both half darts and full-length darts, I talked about that already. Then GameFace decided they wanted to get into the game. They realized that the competitive Nerf market was being completely neglected by Hasbro, which is weird because, you know, they're the big name. And they were primarily came from the airsoft world and wanted to tap into this market that they felt was being neglected. And I ended up having a chat with one of their representatives for like 2 hours, and I told them what we were looking for, what we had, what we didn't have, what I thought they should try first, where they should go from there. For whatever reason, they basically they acquired the Ceda, but they made a number of changes, some better, some not so good. It was kind of some odd choices in here. It still has the teardown feature, still has the buffer tube, the lower is identical. The upper has been changed. There's some different geometry in like the jam door and the decorations. It also, the barrel is now a separate part. And while I'm generally a fan of modularity, the quality is not quite there. It's got some wobble. We got a train coming in. Luckily, that wobble was easily fixed with a 3D printed kit that, again, somebody sent me, or I might have printed out, I don't know. But it's just some rail that slides on, or it's rail that slides on over the rail. And that took care of a lot of the wobble. But other than that, it was the same. They did add Picatinny rail on the Prime, so you could use any foregrip. Good choice there. The barrel is removable, and maybe that is what they needed to do to change the geometry here to get that Picatinny rail. They had to redo the barrel section entirely. I don't know. But it did still take katana mags. At this point, they're still taking katana mags. It still comes with a katana mag adapter. There's that train. So there was a lot of room for improvement, and I was genuinely impressed when their next leap forward was the Trion, which is nothing like the Ceda in pretty much any way other than that it's a pump-action mag-fed Springer. But their first jump into our hobby as their own dedicated, we designed this, this is ours, has pretty much every feature you could possibly want. If you want to see me gushing about this, I made my own video about it. They really did a wonderful job designing this and having it be their flagship, you know, this is the thing, this is our thing. For its price point, it's incredible. Good plastic quality, yeah, I already gushed about it. But there were a couple of major jumps that they made from here to here. It still has standard buffer tube underneath this grip, and it will take standard AR grips, which makes sense because, again, they came from the Airsoft world. They already have all of that. You can get it from them. It is Picatinny rail under the Prime. Good move there. Picatinny rail on the top. Lovely. It didn't come with a rifled barrel, but it did come with a barrel lug, and so it was easy for Out of Darts to design a rifled barrel. These two also did come with stock with rifled barrels, which is at least something. But the big jump forward, in my opinion, one of the big jumps, in addition to abandoning full-length dart compatibility, which is just a good idea, abandoning teardown, which is also, at this point, you know, it makes it cheaper. It's why they were able to get it down so cheap. Having it tear down means multiple molds. It means having the pins. It means more cost. So by making it one big part, that reduced a lot of various issues. But they also made it come with Talon mags, because early on in the evolution, there was a bit of a debate as to whether people were going to go with Talon mags or Katana mags. And a lot of people already had their Katana mags and they didn't want to switch, or they felt that they were better for this reason or that reason or whatever. There was a lot of debate, and at this point, I think the Talon mags had won. Back here, it was definitely still up in the air. But when this one came out, the magazine that came with it was a Talon mag clone. And so this thing will take Talon mags, no problem. But what it did not even occur to me to check was, will it take Katana mags? And yes, it will. And that's more impressive than you might think, because in addition to just being different shapes, and so you have to have a specially, you know, designed magwell to be able to take both, the catch notch on both are in different places, which means you have to have two different catches in your magwell, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but there are two catches in there for it to be able to take both. And the first person I know of that did that was Gavin Fuzzy in the Spamf. And when that came out, the debate over Talon or Katana was still very much raging. And so he decided to make something that could go with both. Here, they have finally decided to back the winning horse, because Talon won over Katana. It just did. But they made it so that you could still use the magazines that they had previously made, the ones that came with their old blasters, their predecessors. They probably sold these separately. It'll also work with things like the Pecker mag that we 3D printed for things. It's a good move to make it take both. I feel that abandoning full-length compatibility was a good idea, but keeping Katana mag compatibility is an incredibly good move, because these magazines still exist, they're still out there, and it doesn't affect the performance. It's just a matter of a slightly different magwell and two catches instead of one. That's not going to affect your performance of your blaster and isn't really going to overly affect the cost. And it's a really good idea. And they're not the only ones to have done this. Dart Zone did it too. The original Dart Zone Pro magazines are katanas. They are katana clones. They will work in katana blasters. The catch is in the same place, same geometry, all of that, which meant the early Dart Zone blasters wouldn't work with Talon magazines because Talon mags don't fit in a katana adapter. Now you can just swap this adapter out, and obviously that's what we did with our Dart Zone Pro blasters. But with the newest ones, the 1.2 and the 4.0, the magazines that come with them are Talon mags. They have finally backed the right horse, or finally decided to go with the industry standard, the hobby standard, but they also have both catches and will also take katana mags as well as the newer ones, which is good because they sold a lot of their original magazines. So having that compatibility is really cool, and seeing companies be aware enough of the hobby and be self-aware enough and willing to recognize that we're wrong, we need to switch to the standard, but we should make it backwards compatible because we were the ones that were wrong and flooded the market with these things. I really appreciate that, and seeing that the companies are listening to us, because little details like that, there are times where like, they make some weird choice that makes absolutely no sense, but then you dig into it and you discover little things that they did right, and it's very encouraging to me that they're listening, they're getting there slowly but surely, and things are definitely getting better. We have things like this over things like this. So there you have it. There is my my little addendum to explain the evolution of the Ceda and Game Face's big jump, and to talk about the evolution of magazines, which wasn't previously covered in this series, but is definitely integral to the whole thing. So, yeah. My thanks to those of you who pointed out that I had missed this, because I just absolutely hadn't even occurred to me. I had completely forgotten they existed. They're not ones that I keep on display in my racks, so I don't see them and remember them. So having people point it out, you know, I very much appreciate that, because it was an integral step, a true link in the evolution here that was missing. And so, yeah. Feel free to point out anything else that I've missed, and if you point out something that I feel is significant enough that it deserves a video, I will make a video about it. And by all means, continue to discuss, debate, bicker over classifications in the comments. It's interesting to see how some people, because of their play style, categorize a blaster in one way where someone else will do another way, or somebody, this is the key feature that I like, and so that's what I focus on, and so because of that I categorize things differently. It's really an interesting discussion, so by all means continue to have those, and as always, thank you guys for watching.